Let us continue with the second block, the service business. And before I'll hand over to Markus, who will guide you through a little bit more details, just to make everyone familiar what we understand as service. So the structure of the DEUTZ service business as of today, as of 24, or 23, but the structure is not materially changed within that year. We mentioned the number before, the roughly 480 million euro revenue in the last year. Today, a bit above 500. And the majority of that revenue still comes from spare parts, almost 70%. Billable hours, in other words, technicians performing the maintenance works at the engine, is 8%. If you look 10 years back, it's been, I think, hardly 1 or 2%. So DEUTZ used to be mainly a service parts dealer, but we've actively decided to bring more part of the value chain in-house. And then 23% is the exchange business, which is, as the name suggests, remanufacturing. So in fact, we'll take engines, old DEUTZ engines out of applications, remanufacture them, turning them into pretty much new, and selling them back to the customers. Our presence is here truly global. We are present in more than 130 countries, not in every country with a fully owned DEUTZ part. Some countries we operate with partners, but we'll hear later that we're trying to roll in more and more of that business because a lot of the margin pool or the profit pools is actually in the service and aftermarket. And more than 1,000 dealers we have globally looking after our engines for our customers. Important is that, despite the good growth we've enjoyed over the past years, there's still a lot of growth potential ahead of us. And we show that in a very simple logic. So on the top, you see the spare parts market, right? So we believe there is a global spare part market of 16 billion euros, out of which 1.1 billion is for DEUTZ spare parts. And today, we are in that 1.1 billion, so we serve roughly 0.4 billion. So that's more than 30%. That's a good market share, but we will never get to 100% market share, but we'll believe we can grow it to 40, 45, maybe even beyond. So that's one opportunity for DEUTZ. On the other aspect is here, we believe we can also gain some of the spare parts market from competitors. Obviously, it's more difficult to gain here than to gain there, but both represents growth potential. On the billable service, the maintenance hours, the current share we have is lower, and thus the potential consequently is also higher. We see a total market of some 11 billion euros, DEUTZ 0.7, and here we're only represented at 14%. Only shouldn't sound negative because we've grown that significantly, but there is still, from this almost 0.7 billion is still by competitors or by other partners which we can conquer. And also here, other brands, independent market, also potential for DEUTZ. And important is every percentage point higher penetration by DEUTZ is an 18 million euro growth. And that gives us confidence that on the path from the currently 520 to the 1 billion, it's ambitious, but yet realistic. And that's why the focus we put on the service growth is, as mentioned, 1 billion by 2030, investing further in network development and also establishing new sales channels. New business models play an important role. Third party, remember on the previous page, the left block of the page. That's what we mean with third party. Industrial fleet management. Digital business models. Here we are very much at the beginning. So there's a lot of data out there on the engines, on the applications, but very little use is being made by companies like us. So in turn, there is potential as well. Predictive maintenance, telematic solutions. And we've got a great global coverage. Remember the more than 1,000 dealers, but there are still white spots out there, which we want to structurally, but we want to conquer. And the Daimler Truck engines, repeating myself from earlier, the business is superb, but we believe on the service and parts side, we can do better than Rolls-Royce has done in the past. And with that, I would give Markus the opportunity to explain everything I just outlined in more detail.
Yeah, so that is exactly can you hear me? Is it on? Yeah, okay. That is exactly what I want to do, to make you more familiar with a bit more detail on each initiative we have here. And there's a general saying we have in the service, so we want to simplify the service for our customer, and that beyond the DEUTZ engine, so also going into the whole machine. And that is a key pillar in our growth strategy. And as Sebastian said, we will continue to build up on our service network. And there's a clear focus also on the US. We see there a huge potential. And even last year, we showed already that setting up new service centers, we call them DEUTZ Power Centers, DPCs. We want to be very pragmatic and close to the end customer. Therefore, we launched several new technicians in the vans. So we go out, you see on the picture, very pragmatic. And therefore, we can be fast at that point where the customer expects us and ensure less downtime than in the past. That is a clear focus topic. And we started also a structured approach. You see it on the right side. We call it Prepare the Base. Here it's all about that we will increase the productivities of the technicians, that they focus on the work on the machine or on the engine instead of doing administrative work. There's a second lever where we want, based on today's footprint of these DPCs, extend scope, increase the number of technicians and want to grow. And there's a last step where we do a lot of investigation right now to look where are the sweet spots or white spots where we place new satellites. And this will then lead for sure also to another revenue upside. In total, with a clear next target, want to achieve 1 billion in 2030. This measure, we believe that this will count for 100 million euro revenue upside. The next measure, it's all about industrial fleet service. So it's service beyond the diesel engine and moving into the whole machine. And I have some examples with us. And in the US, the team were able to sign a service contract with a big OEM from the material handling industry for aerial working platforms, where there's certain regions where they are weak in service, and the DEUTZ organization takes over now the service for this customer in that area. And that is the first proof point where we want to build up our strategy. And we acquired in Benelux and Ireland service centers where we have no DEUTZ business today. It's all non-DEUTZ, which also is a next leverage where we see with the learning curve we also take with these partners that we increase the service business. Digitization, and for sure it's everywhere around, and digitization is affecting the entire industry. For sales and service, we started with Fusion Hub. So that is a tool where we, in a first step, the target is to connect assets, because key is that you have access to data. So, and it was surprising for us that the reaction of the customers was better than expected. So we have more than 10,000 units out in the field where we continuously collect data, different like in the past where you get just a few parameters every 20 seconds. So these are tons of data we get, and based on this, let's say on this asset, we start to create benefits for the customers. One buzzword would be predictive maintenance, but there's more to come. So the next level short term is really to scale up the connected assets also next year, that we have 20,000 machines connected, and offer first, we call it hardware as a service, that they pay for collecting this data, which they also use for their demand. We will offer software as a service where we have customized features which the customer want to expect in their, call it dashboards. But this is not the target to bring out the toolboxes and connect the machines. For sure, the midterm target is to create value, and that is the way we are at the beginning, honestly speaking. But we are more than confident that we walk this way down. And as just to have a fantasy, we call it uptime as a service. If there is a promise that in future a machine that we with this asset that we avoid downtime because we know in advance that a problem is coming up, that we serve already the technicians with the right part based on the failure analysis to the customer, and if also other component supplier are willing to connect, that we are able to have the entire machine monitoring. So that think about a harvester in the harvesting season. So that would be a fantastic tool for all these end users, and that is the fantasy behind where we are working on. And this target would add 50 million from our point of view in this short period until 2030. If short period for such kind of business models, I think it's fair to say. Next point, and that is my last slide already, but it has the biggest impact. So to achieve the 1 billion revenue, we have to continue on our M&A service strategy. We presented also last year that we do not this by accident, that we have a clear criteria which are important for us: revenue size, strategic fit, down to number of technicians. And the same logic, we have a sales funnel or a project funnel where we put all the assets in and then go for the right ones. And this is something where we want to get 200 million additional revenue in 2030. And you see on the right side the proof points we have already, and where we also gain for sure experience. We get more trained to it, also in the organization, the acquisition of Diesel Motor Nordics, Hochschild. Recently, the acquisition of our partner in Poland, also strategically being close to eastern of Europe. And also as for sure a big benefit, the consolidation and the integration of the Rolls-Royce power system business, which added roughly 30 million revenue in service. So this is a focus topic to achieve the journey towards the 1 billion revenue. And how this fits together, I give back to Sebastian.
Thank you, Markus. And indeed, you've seen a lot of elements, bits and pieces, which I think all make a lot of sense and all require a lot of work by the teams. And to build this together, we're coming from the 515 at the lower end, what we see for 24 right now, and we're going to grow bit by bit over the years to the 1 billion. The network development with a focus on the US. I am personally confident there's a bit more to be had than the 100, but time will tell. So here we are optimistic. Industrial fleet, the third-party business we just heard. Digital, that's probably the fuzziest bit as of today, because this also requires the largest change also on behavior of the customers. Remember, it's always not about having the product, whether it's a physical or digital product. It's also about having the demand for the product out there. And our customers are not necessarily the ones who are the front runners in digitalization as well, as we see in other parts of the world. And M&A, we just heard it. This is a series of smaller but relevant acquisitions. Also, I think Oliver will point that out later, with fairly low multiples, because for the acquisition prices, because there's not exactly very much demand from an M&A perspective. So that's very relevant as well. And a bit of pricing and organic growth also will contribute to that journey to the 1 billion. And why am I spending a bit more time on that? Because, you know, from 515 to 1 billion is a big development in principle mature market. But we want to make very clear that this is not just a number which we pulled out somewhere and put it on a PowerPoint slide, that the teams are working on that. And we updated this strategic path for this Capital Market Day, but the teams have already been working on that over the last year and years. So it's just putting now an ambitious goal on a piece of paper to also put some pressure internally to get the results done.